Hello everyone, and thanks for listening today. This is the RX Daily Dose. Today's episode is being recorded on Monday, February 10th, and I'm your host, Ian Parnagoni. We update this podcast every week for healthcare providers, medical professionals, and anyone who has an interest in drug updates. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all of your favorite podcast platforms and social media, including iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. All links can be found in the show notes below. So getting right into the updates from this week, on January 31st, the FDA approved Palforzia to mitigate allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis, that may occur with accidental exposure to peanuts. Treatment with Palforzia may be initiated in individuals aged 4 through 17 years with a confirmed diagnosis of peanut allergy and may be continued in individuals 4 years of age and older. Those who take Palforzia must continue to avoid peanuts in their diets. Peanut allergy is a condition in which the body's immune system mistakenly identifies even small amounts of peanut as harmful. Allergic reactions to peanuts are unpredictable in occurrence and in how they present, with some individuals experiencing severe reactions from even trace amounts. Physical symptoms can develop within seconds of exposure and may include skin reactions, digestive discomfort, or more dangerous reactions such as constriction of the throat and airway, and loss of adequate blood flow to vital organs of the body. Antihistamines and epinephrine can be used to treat allergic reactions, but severe reactions can be fatal even with appropriate prompt treatment. Palforzia cannot be used for the emergency treatment of allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis. Treatment with Palforzia consists of 3 phases: initial dose escalation, updosing, and maintenance. The initial dose escalation phase is given on a single day. The updosing phase consists of 11 increasing dose levels and occurs over several months. Initial dose escalation and the first dose of each updosing level are administered under supervision of a healthcare professional in a healthcare setting with the ability to manage potential severe allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis. While anaphylaxis can occur at any time during Palforzia therapy, patients are at highest risk during and after the initial dose escalation and the first dose of each updosing level. The patient may continue that dose level daily at home. After a patient completes all updosing levels, they may begin the daily maintenance dose. Patients who experience certain allergic reactions due to Palforzia may need to discontinue treatment or have their dosing schedule modified. Palforzia is a powder that is manufactured from peanuts and packaged in pull-apart color-coded capsules for dose escalation and updosing, and in a sachet for maintenance treatment. The powder is emptied from the capsules or sachet and mixed with a small amount of semi-solid food such as applesauce, yogurt, or pudding that the patient then consumes. The effectiveness of Palforzia is supported by a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study conducted in the US, Canada, and Europe in approximately 500 peanut allergic individuals. Effectiveness was assessed by evaluating the percentage of study participants tolerating an oral challenge with a single 600 milligram dose of peanut protein with no more than mild allergic symptoms after 6 months of maintenance treatment. The results showed that 67% of Palforzia recipients tolerated a 600 milligram dose of peanut protein in the challenge, compared to 4% of placebo recipients. The safety of Palforzia was assessed in 2 double-blind, placebo-controlled studies in approximately 700 peanut allergic individuals. The most common reported side effects of Palforzia were abdominal pain, vomiting, nausea, tingling in the mouth, itching, cough, runny nose, throat irritation and tightness, hives, wheezing, and shortness of breath and anaphylaxis. Palforzia should not be administered to those with uncontrolled asthma. To mitigate the risk of anaphylaxis associated with Palforzia, the FDA is requiring a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy that's REMS with the approval, which includes elements to assure safe use. Palforzia will only be available through specially certified healthcare providers, healthcare settings, and pharmacies to patients who are enrolled in the REMS program. The FDA is requiring that healthcare providers who prescribe Palforzia and healthcare settings that dispense and administer Palforzia are educated on the risk of anaphylaxis associated with its use. In addition, the initial dose escalation phase and first dose of each updosing level must only be administered to patients in a certified healthcare setting equipped to monitor patients and to identify and manage anaphylaxis. Patients, or their parents or caregivers, must also be counseled on the need for the patients to have injectable epinephrine available for immediate use at all times, the need for continued dietary peanut avoidance, and how to recognize the signs and symptoms of anaphylaxis. The FDA granted approval of Palforzia to Aimmune Therapeutics. Also this past week, the FDA approved ferric derosomaltose, which goes by brand name monoferric. This is an intravenous iron carbohydrate complex with a matrix structure composed of interchanging layers of ferric hydroxide and the carbohydrate derosomaltose. The product is indicated for the treatment of iron deficiency anemia in adult patients who have an intolerance to oral iron, or who have had unsatisfactory response to oral iron, or who have non-hemodialysis dependent chronic kidney disease. Iron deficiency anemia, known as IDA, is a debilitating condition that affects almost 1 billion people worldwide. IDA is often associated with many chronic disorders such as renal diseases, cancers, including chemotherapy-induced anemia, gynecological disorders, including abnormal uterine bleeding, and inflammatory bowel disease. The safety and efficacy of monoferric for treatment of IDA was evaluated in 2 randomized open-label clinical trials with active control performed in a total of 350 patients with IDA of different etiologies. Trial 1 included 1,512 patients with IDA who had intolerance to oral iron or who had unsatisfactory response to oral iron, or for whom there was a clinical need for rapid repletion of iron stores. Trial 2 included 1,538 patients with IDA who had non-dialysis dependent chronic kidney disease. In these 2 8-week trials, patients were randomized 2-to-1 to treatment with monoferric or iron sucrose. Monoferric was intravenously administered as a single dose of 1,000 milligrams. Patients receiving monoferric experienced a mean increase in hemoglobin from baseline to week 8 of 2.49 grams per deciliter in trial 1 and 1.22 grams per deciliter in trial 2. Based upon these results, non-inferiority was confirmed. Adverse reactions in both trials were reported in 8.6% of patients treated with monoferric. The most common adverse reactions reported were nausea and rash. Adjudicated serious or severe hypersensitivity reactions were reported in 6 out of 2,008 patients in the monoferric group. Also on January 31st, the FDA approved a vaccine to prevent a potential flu pandemic that is associated with the H5N1 influenza A virus. The product goes by brand name Audenz, was developed by Seqirus, and is the first ever adjuvant cell-based flu vaccine that protects against H5N1 in the event of a pandemic. If a flu virus becomes pandemic, it would potentially kill millions of people across the world. The World Health Organization says a severe influenza pandemic would cause a big loss of national economic productivity, causing severe economic burdens on people and communities. If there was a pandemic, it could be debilitating across the globe. The last large flu pandemic we had was the Spanish flu outbreak in 1918. It was caused by H1N1 flu virus, affected more than 500 million people around the world, and killing 50 to 100 million people. The H1N1 virus is different from the H5N1 virus. and the Audenz vaccine targets it. Often called bird flu, the H5N1 virus has been known to be contagious. Seqirus has been developing the vaccine in association with the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, which is part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The company will stockpile Audenz doses in case of a pandemic outbreak. And finally this week, the FDA granted breakthrough therapy designation to apabetalone, which is being developed by Resverlogics Corp., in combination with standard of care therapy, including high-intensity statins, for the secondary prevention of major adverse cardiovascular events, going by acronym MACE, in patients with type 2 diabetes and recent acute coronary syndrome. Apabetalone is a first-in-class small molecule bromodomain and extraterminal domain, going by acronym BET, inhibitor that selectively targets bromodomain 2 at the transcription level. The investigational drug is believed to normalize dysregulated epigenetics of chronic diseases through selective BD2 inhibition. BET proteins are epigenetic readers that contribute to a variety of diseases by increasing production of dysregulated proteins. The designation is supported by data from the Phase 3 BET on MACE trial that evaluated the efficacy and safety of apabetalone in the prevention of MACE in high-risk type 2 diabetes patients with coronary artery disease. Patients were randomized to receive either apabetalone 100 milligrams twice daily or placebo with standard of care therapy for 120 weeks. The primary endpoint was the reduction in narrowly defined MACE, defined as a single composite endpoint of cardiovascular death, non-fatal myocardial infarction, or stroke. The results demonstrated that apabetalone did not meet the study's primary endpoint. However, apabetalone did achieve key secondary endpoints showing significant reductions in hospitalization due to congestive heart failure versus placebo, along with CV improvements in 2 pre-specified subpopulations, including patients with chronic kidney disease. Moreover, patients with moderate to severe cognitive decline reported significant improvements in cognition when treated with apabetalone, as measured by the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. The CEO for Resverlogics said in a statement, I quote, "This important designation, the first for a major cardiovascular indication, entails working closely with the FDA to facilitate a time-efficient drug development program, including planned clinical trials and plans for expediting the manufacturing development process for apabetalone." And I also want to give quick updates on 2 other things. The first is on the novel Wuhan coronavirus, and this is as of Sunday, February 9th. So the coronavirus death toll in China rose to 811, which has now surpassed the death toll from the SARS epidemic back in 2002. The number of confirmed infections rose to 37,198 worldwide. There are only 12 confirmed cases in the U.S., and remember also that there have only been 2 deaths outside of China from the new virus. The number of new cases has stabilized in recent days, but World Health Organization officials cautioned against reading too much into these numbers, saying that Wuhan and Hubei were in the midst of a very intense outbreak. The measures put in place in Hubei appear to be paying off, but a little bit of caution from the World Health Organization. They warn that outbreaks like these are unpredictable. And finally, one last update on the influenza virus. That's the standard flu we think about during the winter. Just to put that in perspective, remember I said just a moment ago that there were 37,198 coronavirus infections worldwide and 811 deaths, all but 2 contained to China. In contrast, at least 19 million people in the U.S. have experienced flu illness this season. About 180,000 people have been hospitalized, and an estimated 10,000 people have died. 68 children have died this year from the flu. The influenza season is fairly predictable, unlike the coronavirus, which is why you see so much of the hype out there. Children and young adult hospitalization rates are currently higher than those observed at this time in recent flu season, despite overall hospitalization rates staying around the same. Influenza B, which we talked about previously, is the most common, but influenza A H1N1 subtype has been more commonly reported in recent weeks. To reiterate what we said last week, here's some tips for staying healthy this season. For everyone 6 months and older, the CDC says getting the yearly flu vaccine is the single best way to ward off the seasonal flu virus. People should also steer clear of close contact with sick people, stay home from work and school when they're sick, cover their mouth and nose while sneezing or coughing in their sleeve, and clean their hands with soap and water or an alcohol-based sanitizer. And that's all I have for this week. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'll include all links and resources in the show notes below, so please go back and check those out too. Please connect with me on any of your social media platforms and give me feedback on what you listened to today. I'd love to know what you thought about the episode. And as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Music by Joseph McDade.